Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. Let me make sure I could be heard. Yesterday I was talking and talking and talking, and there was no sound coming out. So I hope everybody can hear me. And if you can hear me, I hope you're having a blessed day. I hope you're having a great day. Spend a little time on my topic today. So I hope you guys are going to be open hearted, open minded, and feel free to jump in where you feel that you have something to add to the conversation. This is, again, I'm Preacher Moss. I'm the host of the SOS. I'm not the owner of the SOS. I'm the host of the SOS. But this is the platform for everybody. I believe that as we move through this year in particular, I think we need to change the format a little bit where I invite ideas, I invite advice, and I also invite concepts and solutions from people because, me talking, I'm going to get to the point where I may throw an idea out. But I am looking for people to comment. Give me your perspective. One of the good things about being able to do this show, and there are numerous good things about being able to do the show. One of the good things is I can call on people to be honest. I can ask folks to say, hey, listen, what is this thing that's driving you, that's motivating you, or on the converse, the things that's stunning you, or it's an obstacle. So, I know I spend time with the new people. I'm going to say, hey, listen, people, we appreciate you new folks coming on the show, but we've been on pushing close to 300 episodes. So you're catching up. We appreciate you, but we've been here for a minute. That's number one. Being here for a minute, I'm going to keep it brief. You are on the SOS show, the ShOUT show, with the ShOUT show family, the ShOUT show soldiers, the ShOUT show stars, if you will. So I want you to know that you are in the presence of royalty. When you get in that comment section, you're not in a regular comment section. You hear what I'm saying? You're not in a regular goofy comment section. We're not talking about silly stuff and who slept with who and things. No, we're talking about real issue. Today I spent some time really, really soul searching about what I'm going to talk about as a topic. You can already see it on the screen. And by the way, this segment is sponsored by BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. You can call 1-800-679-3175 and get in touch with Miss Maxine K, the Harriet Tubman of financial freedom. And she's even understanding what I'm talking about today. Financial freedom is a lot of times associated with joy. So, if it's your first time on the show, we appreciate you coming. There's no pecking order. You can get in the shout out, the comment section, get your shout out. But I'm going to ask, if you're going to get in the section, say something positive. Shout out to somebody. How are you? Are you doing okay? Welcome, family. Have a blessed day. Because you have to turn some things around to get that positivity going for some folks. And if you don't mind, if you're first time, click the subscribe button, click the link for a notification, and if you like the show, click the like button. But I'm not here for that. That comes later. Right now, it's about how do we build. Now, at the beginning of the year, I said some things about how are we going to build as a community. I framed it getting away from politics and moving to politics. Well, this is going to be another session in politics. Yesterday, we talked about some of the aspects of, what are we going to be doing in terms of success and survival in COVID 2021? Well, I decided to go a little bit deeper a little bit. And sometimes, we talk about topics, or I talk about topics, but it's for a reason. It's for a reason. A lot of things that I'm talking about, I've been through something, so I don't want you to think that I'm just speaking off the cuff. And I realize that I'm speaking as a person that's been through something. I realize pretty much everybody in this room has been through pretty much the same thing, if not more. So therein lies the conversation. Therein lies the floor for us to have core values and share. Okay, let me get to my people in the building. Finally home, brothers and sisters. I thought she was home already. We got Sister Reed finally made it back to her home, sweet home. She could see her. I'm glad you got back. Your son was about to be married and divorced by the time you got home there, Reed. But I appreciate you coming back home. And this is important. While she wasn't at home, she tuned in every day when she was in Michigan and all these other places. And we appreciate you. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you. And we have our consulting producer, Miss Sultana Whitfield. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you and making this show what it is. She handles our social media stuff. I'm moving away because I realize, brothers and sisters, that she's better than I am. She's better than I am. And sometimes acknowledging that is not just intelligence, it is freedom. So I want to appreciate and give a special acknowledgement for Sister Sultana pulling this thing together. And we have my sister from New Jersey. Did you go sledding today? Sister Sultana Ali out in New Jersey? Oh my gosh, you guys got hit with snow. I hope everything's going good for you, but y'all got smashed. And I hope, well, if you're going to go outside, wear your galoshes, all right? Wear your galoshes and make sure your mittens are clipped to the side, to the end of your suit jacket, your coat there, and stay out of that cold weather, all right? Special appearance by Mama Son Mary, Mama Son Moss, who's checking in. This is really a topic that she and I have talked about. At times, as particularly with our elders, at times these are the balances about sadness and joy. Trying to make sure that our elders are healthy and comfortable, and they feel love, and most of them just feeling love. They have access to give love. Very important. So I'm going to talk about that as well. All tough. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. How you doing, sir? All the way from the Great White North, Toronto. Toronto. I meant to ask you how the snow was up in Toronto because, wow, man, New York, Connecticut, they got smashed, brother. I know we getting snow down here. I think you guys got some pretty significant snow beforehand, so I don't know if this snow that came through hits you, but in any event, brother, I hope you're well. There you go. There you go. Home sweet home, very grateful for my shout out to your family, both auntie and sister are well. I want to thank you for your prayers and support. See, that's the thing, brothers and sisters. That's the thing. You can't really actually talk about, you really can't talk about, positivity unless you see it, you experience it other people's joy. Sunday Rashid, how you doing? Wow, assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Romance without finance is a dang nuisance. Yep, I know that song, sister. I know that song. I know what you're talking about. But that's funny. All right. And we got Sister Jasmine Fruits all the way from the UK. We appreciate you coming. So I want to get to the topic at hand because I don't want to be too far gone with this. And the topic, today's show topic is: when dealing with sadness, don't lose your joy. When you're dealing with sadness, don't lose your joy. I equate joy as a metaphor for placement and direction, not the euphemism of I'm happy, I'm overjoyed, I'm ecstatic. Joy is a placeholder in my book. When I say a placeholder, it means it has a systematic purpose for being there. When they say don't lose your joy, because losing your joy is almost like losing your direction. And I don't mean, I know people say, hey, remember the good times. And yes, I am a strong proponent of remembering the good times. But I'm going to throw this out here. It's not enough. It's not enough to remember the good times. It's more important in this regard to remember the procedure that got you to the good times. The methodology that you employed to have that happiness. Because on the flip side, that's the methodology you have to look at when there isn't joy, when there is sadness, when there is depression, or when there is anxiety. One of the things that was really important for me as a young comedian, just so you know, as a young comedian, being funny was great, but it didn't mean that you weren't going to deal with a large amount of rejection. You were funny in your space. You were funny in your town. You were funny in these clubs. But when you go to other clubs, per se, the locals didn't want to see you do well. A few did, but the locals didn't want to see you do well because to them that constituted you were taking away their work and their opportunities. And I remember one time doing a gig, and I remember I got fired. And I might have talked about this before, but I felt low. And I made that famous call to Mr. Gregory. Now, he said a lot of things, but this is something I didn't bring up that he said at this particular time. He said, you don't really know misery. He said, you don't know misery in this game until you can't do it anymore. Hear me again. You don't know misery in this game until you can't do it anymore. In life, brothers and sisters, you don't know true pain, true depression, true anxiety until you can't do it anymore. And at that point in time, you're not talking about sadness. You're talking about something that's lacking balance. You know what I mean? Something that's really, really lacking balance. And I put that out because you know what? That's the thing. Frankie Beverly and Mays had a song called "Joy and Pain." Y'all remember the tune, "Joy and Pain," like sunshine and rain. That joy and pain are like sunshine and rain. They're talking about, and it's very, very great. This wonderful song. It's talking about balance. Thank you for the shout out, Sundiata. Appreciate you, sir. Give me a call, man. We're overdue. By the way, we're overdue. So give some love to the Lighthouse crew while we're out there. All right. But this whole idea of balance is really, really important because I used to be a school teacher, and what you would see, particularly with the group of kids that I taught, is that they were children. They might have emotional issues, but really they were mostly out of balance. And education and the school system could not see, not that the kids were problematic, not that they had learning deficiency. They couldn't basically understand, and you're talking about PhD, that the children lack balance. That to teach these children, you had to address the idea of A, do they feel protected? B, are they happy? If they're not happy, C, what can we do to adjust that balance so that they can feel coming to school, getting an education? They felt a sense of joy, fulfillment, inspiration. There's a great quote from Dr. Bilal Phillips, and I'll read it. It's a religious quote, but it is. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dr. Bilal Phillips says, "The believer remains free from the extremes of happiness that cause one to forget Allah and the extremes of sadness that cause the ignorant to lose hope and blame Allah." Let me say that again. The believer remains free from the extremes of happiness that cause one to forget Allah and the extremes of sadness that cause the ignorant to lose hope and blame Allah. What's it sound like? It sounds like people are out of balance. And in that quote, blame. Remember we did that show a while back? I think we did a show called Blame. I took the quote from KRS's wife. The acronym BLAME, BLAME, stood for because looking at me ain't easy. Because looking at me ain't easy. That's what blame meant. And there's a lot to that because when you're dealing with sadness, brothers and sisters, there's always breadcrumbs. When I say breadcrumbs, I mean there's a pathway into it and there's a pathway out of it. We're all sometimes visited with calamities and hardships that we can't explain. They just happen. But the root is, how do you deal with the calamity and the unexplained? Or, in the words of Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock, the unexpected. We all deal with things that are unexpected. The aspect of sadness does not come from the actual event per se. Initially it does. But the sadness, the true anxiety and depression come from the fact of how we deal with it. Do you deal with it successfully? Do you deal with it in a failing manner? And that's hard. That's hard a lot of times to talk to yourself that way. I remember going to a funeral when I was a kid. I was down south, went to a funeral. And the night before, the grieving process, I was too young, but the grieving process was the night before to properly grieve. Everybody would get just pissy drunk. Can I say pissy drunk? It's my show. Pissy drunk. That's a different kind of drunk. And they would just drink. And it was culture at this point in time, brothers. It was culture. People, if you watch old movies like Cooley High, what do they do before they drink? They pour out some for those who aren't here, and they drink. They get sloshed. This is cultural, going all the way back. It's not black people. It's not live. It's a lot of folks. We call it self-medicating because you know what? They're not trying to get to that balance. Some people say, all right, this is a poison, and they go back to their lives. Some people don't recover. And the larger part of it is talking about sadness, talking about not feeling well, or that feeling that things are not going to change. It's something you have to have a large discussion with. We're talking about kids right now who are not doing well with remote learning. Had a young man committed suicide because he didn't have football as an outlet. He had school and education in his family, but he didn't have football as an outlet, and he committed suicide. Now, I don't know what was going on in this young man's mind. It'd be callous for me to go, come on, dude, it's football. It'd be callous for me because I don't know what's going on in his mind, how he feels. But look at that space. Football, in many regards, is a high definer, particularly for a high school student, a high school male. Football is a big thing. And I can understand that and I can appreciate that. But what's the larger part of it that plays into it? Is there a social component that's responsible for this type of behavior? Is there some type of social moray that allows for this type of thing to exist? You know what I mean? We we place value on things that sometimes they don't have the appropriate value. We make them larger than they actually are. And this is nothing new. We all do it. But I think one of the things when we talk about sadness as opposed to joy, because joy is accessible. Joy is public. Like, you want people to know that you are joyful. And part of that process of letting people know that you're joyful is that you're letting them know that a process has come about that's been successful. Something has happened, brothers and sisters, that's inspired me to share the sentiment, the story narrative, and the process with everybody. Talk to somebody who's been successful. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to tell you every nook and cranny along the way to success. And that's fine. That's being successful. The idea of sadness, if you will, and I hope I don't bring the room down, but I hope I'm trying to educate you like I'm trying to educate myself. The idea of sadness is that it deals with two things: frustration and disappointment. Frustration and disappointment. And that frustration and disappointment can come from you. It can come from an outside source. The moment you look at something or scenario and you're frustrated or you have disappointment with it, you've developed a relationship with it. Does that make sense? You've developed a relationship with the disappointment and also the frustration that comes along with it. Now, a lot of times, it seems easy to simplify this. We put it upon merit, which I think is a very dangerous thing. We put it upon merit. So and so got up, got himself an education, got a job. Why can't you do it? Simple, because people are not aligned in a linear way. People learn and experience life in different scenarios, different sections. It's just like babies develop. Not all babies walk at 10 months. Some walk at 9 months. Some don't walk till later. But it's a process that everybody has to go through. And not to be overreaching, but a lot of times we do not talk about the failure and disappointment around us. We dance around failure and disappointment. I've been fortunate to be a part of a small group where when we get together, we just talk about failures. And I'm here to tell you, it is funny as hell. Comedians love to talk about actually, they love to talk about other people's failures. But when you're with true comedians and true friends, we can talk about failures, and it is hilarious. And not just being hilarious, it's cathartic. Because so many people think that in that space with a microphone and electricity and you have everybody's attention, it's hard to fail. No. Even when you have a good set, you can fail because you're not connecting. And that is just, a very, very ephemeral curriculum, a very ephemeral connection to the rest of life that you're dealing with. Don't be shy, everybody chime in. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing, sister? Sister Aika, all the way from Indonesia. Appreciate you. What do you guys think about that whole aspect of sadness being attached to failure and disappointment? Because it's deep, it's really deep. Like, if anybody's done family services, like family counseling or something like that, or work with inmates who are returning back into society, one of the things that is very difficult is that, you take you don't take that failure. It's just failure. You take it as a tattoo, and then you take it as a tattoo, and then you're branded with it. People always say, why is it so hard for returning citizens to make it in society? It's because society has branded them. Wait a minute, branded them failure, and on top of that, branded them as being disappointments, and on top of that, it's had time to develop the argument against them. It's always been my personal opinion. That's why when somebody comes up for parole or probation or another hearing, they're going to reopen the case. It's hard because that person really, really has to work with failure. The system reminds you that you failed some part today, and I really, really believe that. I began to think about that a lot. So let's talk about how do we get out of it. Got my main man Jawad coming out here. Get the Prozac. Nah, I don't do the Prozac. Okay, we got Sister Sultana's failure is a lesson to learn something different. Okay, that's an attitudinal shift. I like that. Why do you think it's a lesson to learn something different? I personally believe, in Islam, we have the whole idea of the straight path, the Sirot al-Mustaqim, the straight path. But life tells you that you're not going to be a straight person. You can be a good person, but you're not going to be a perfect person. You're going to fall off the path somewhere. And I always thought that the Sirot al-Mustaqim, Sunday Ada, you can jump in on this. I always thought that the straight path was a reminder that when you lose your way, latitudinally and longitudinally, there's a space you can look to that gives you guidance to at least get back. It's sort of like the North Star. Like if you lose your way in the darkness, at least there's the North Star to point you in the northward direction. I believe that the Sirot al-Mustaqim is the same way. And when we have to find ourselves and find the temerity to go over there, humble yourself and get on that path. And do things that keep you on that path. What do you think about that, Sunday Ada? What do you think about that, Sister Sultana? Tell me what you think. Sister Jasmine, what do you think about that? Because, and I'm going to say something about Brother Jawad here. He said, get the Prozac. I feel like failure and disappointment have become a pharmaceutical bonanza. All the pharmaceuticals they have out there for depression and anxiety, all of the new anxieties that they have so many anxieties now. You have to take a pill for a pill for a pill. Think about that. I was born in '66. My grandfather had a great medicine for being depressed. He said, take yourself 100 grams of get over it. Now that's that time. I'm not making jokes about these times. People are dealing with serious issues right now, and I don't want to downplay that. But my point is, you have a whole industry that caters to failure and disappointment, that caters to people who take that failure and disappointment and they turn it into something else. And that something else, for lack of a better word, is, some type of derived sense of hopelessness. I can't change. This will never change. I did my best effort. I used to deal with that with the students, I've tried and tried and tried and tried. I'm like, yeah, you should try again, and we don't have that these days. It's very absolute. If you fail once, you don't get another chance. If anybody wanted to know why so many television stars and movie stars have so many issues with mental health, it's because Hollywood is unforgiving. Per se, if you got a TV show on a network deal back in the day, if you had a network TV show and they went through all of the process, and look at the numbers I'm getting ready to give you. They went through all of the process and your show got picked up and they gave it a shot. If your show got canceled, brothers and sisters, in Hollywood, there's a rule that says you won't get another shot at a TV show for 7 years. Hear what I'm saying? You won't get another shot at a TV show for 7 years. That's 7 years of somebody reminding you that you failed at this attempt. Now it's different now because you have all the streaming services. You have your Hulu, your Netflix, and your Peacock, and all those. But before, when it was just ABC, NBC, and CBS, if you did not hit on one of those channels, you did not get another shot at a TV show for 7 years. And human beings were different. I'm not talking about TV stars, but there are people who feel like they're never going to get another shot. And that sadness permeates. That sadness grows. Let me throw up this comment. Jawad said people trying to find that shortcut. Yeah, well, there's no shortcut for hard work. There's no shortcut for hard work. Sister Sultana said Harry Tubman had to answer how many times she had to turn around for maybe about a mile. Yeah. I like that analogy, Sister Sultana. I like that analogy. And I'm going to tell you why. Because happiness, disappointment, failure, and joy are all natural emotions. They're all natural emotions. You can get sad when you get a blessing. Does that make sense? I've seen people get a blessing and they're sad because it wasn't the blessing they wanted. Somebody gave a friend of mine $1,000. I was like, what's wrong with you? Man, I needed $3, man. Well, I can... Well, you need $3. Okay, give that $1,000 back. Okay. Then you can really be sad about it. Then you really have something to talk about. Disappointment. We all deal with disappointment. Sometimes I'm disappointed in a lot of things. Sometimes I'm disappointed in myself. I didn't get up at the time I thought I wanted to, and I couldn't do what I wanted to. But I don't take it and internalize it. Now, we have a lot of time. People where, you know what? It's interesting. So Jawad asked the question, were people more resilient in the past? I think so. And the reason why I think they were more resilient in the past, check this out, is because they didn't have any other choices. Just like I told you about ABC, NBC, CBS, and shows. If you didn't get a show back then, you didn't get another shot for like 7 years, you would go out and you would tour your tail off. While the iron was hot, you would tour your tail off and you would make a case for somebody to give you a show. Or you would redefine yourself as a writer. Or you would redefine yourself as, I'm going to be a director or producer. I'm going to stay close to the business that I love. Or you would produce other shows for other comedians. I remember Bruce Helford did the Drew Carey show. When George Lopez had the George Lopez show, it was interesting talking to him about these shows and him telling me, I hope this thing gets picked up, because what he says, I can't wait around for another one. Now this is the guy that had the Drew Carey show, and he's telling me this is a major producer talking about that fear. But let's move beyond that. Let's move beyond entertainment. Let's move back to our everyday thing. Jawad Quad says, wow, I'm gonna tell you something. Well, I'm going to break it down like this. My parents said this. My grandfather said this. My grandfather said in life, he said, do you want work, you want a job? And I said, I want a job. I got smacked. You want work, you want a job? I said, I want a job. I got smacked. I said, but before you smack me again, what's the problem? He says, well, son, boy, that's what he called me. Well, boy, actually my nickname was Bad News. Well, bad news. He said, a job to a black man means just over broke. He said, but you could work anywhere. And what he meant by that, you could work anywhere, means that you can attach your dreams to your expectations. The job that the man gives you, that's all you're going to work with. Could it be your dream job? Sure. But it's not really a dream job if you work for somebody else. That's my opinion. I'm holding to it. We can debate it later. So you want to know the reason why? Because people weren't soft. Jawad, people weren't soft. We didn't have all these pills, and it's not pills and medication. We didn't have all these excuses. We didn't have all these pillows laying around where we could have soft landings. When you failed, and you moved on with it, and it was real, and you owned it. These days, people don't own it. You want to know why people are sad these days in a lot of cases? Because they haven't had a a whole lot of opportunity to actually own whatever the thing is that makes them sad. What happened is a cause and effect to it. We don't even get to the cause and effect anymore. We're literally in a case where we can't impeach a president that openly incited a riot. You know why? You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because the people who don't want to be responsible for this, who don't want to look and be truthful about what it is, these people were the saddest folks in the world. The people who ransacked the Capitol, right? You call it insurrection, whatever. I'm going to tell y'all something. Those, spiritually, were some of the most hollow people I've seen running through the Capitol. They were sad. You know the term, hurt people hurt people. They were sad, brothers and sisters. And all they could do was act out. They would act out. You know what they were? More so than just sad and lost, they were unbalanced. And right now you're trying to have unbalanced people impeach an unbalanced president. I'll leave it at that. Althoff has this one. He's off. I like this. Social media has allowed people to focus on their devices rather than focus on people. They're missing real life connections that humans need. Yes, you are correct. And I'm going to add in this thing right here. COVID does not help. If you didn't have people skills before COVID, you're in trouble. If you didn't know how to maintain relationships before COVID, you are in trouble. Because it takes a certain practicum. Now, they're going to give out the studies about mental health and all of that type of stuff. And I think that's important. And Sister Satana said, if you look at every disappointment as a blessing. It's a pathway. It's a pathway. You know, like I said, Herbie Hancock. It's not right or wrong. It's just unexpected. When did we get into the sadness business? You know, when did we get into the sadness? She said we live in an asylum. It feels that way with some people. I mean, the inmates, the patients took over the asylum at the Capitol building. I'll leave it there. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Eric, how are you, sir? Giving you big salams. Appreciate you. So we're a little over. I don't want to take too much time. But you know what? I want everybody to just think about that. Because we don't really get to think about it. Check this out. We don't think about sadness to when we're sad. Step back and do some critical analysis on sadness. You know, I like to do it because, you know, I'm a comic, but, you know, I'm a comic creative, whatever. But I really like to look at the aspect of how we get from joy to sadness. And that's what this little talk was about. I mean, if anybody wants to talk more about it, we can bring it up the next show, or I can bring it back in another show. But isn't it ironic that we only really look at sadness when we're sad? We don't critically analyze why we're sad or why people get into sad positions. You know, we talk about hunger when people are hungry. We talk about people dying, death when people are dying. You know, if you look at just the COVID situation, what is the real anxiety and sadness around COVID? It's not that people are dying. People are going to die. This is not being morbid. This is honest. This is logical. None of us is going to live forever. People are going to die. But the sadness comes from the fact that people didn't have to necessarily be sick. They didn't have to necessarily contract illness, which led to the death. And so that sadness in that space is, again, what's the answer? Change. There was an opportunity to change the outcome. And the change didn't happen. The opportunity was not taken care of. It wasn't acted upon, for lack of a better word. So when you begin to look this stuff up in our own individual lives, do a sadness assessment. I'm going to throw that out there. Do a sadness assessment. Like one time in my early 20s, I don't know what happened, but I just wrote down a list of things that make me sad, that bring my mood down. I had make me sad, bring my mood down. And you know what it was? I found the things that really, really made me sad were people who were sad, and it wasn't of their own volition. So when I said I'm talking about people who were caught in famines, people caught in civil war, people compromised by disease, the poor. Those were the things that made me sad. And like, what are the things that really make me? I'm like, that's it. Because sadness for me is it's a logic exercise. Like I ask myself, I'm sad, but how did I get into this situation? Because usually those breadcrumbs are how you get into a situation, how you get out of a situation. So, I think before we leave, I'm gonna tell everybody, do a sadness assessment. If you had kids, I used to do this with my students. If you have kids, please do a sadness assessment. Tell them, hey, how are you feeling? What are the things that make you feel a little sad, a little down? As parents, you all need to do it because we all need to be tied in. And I don't just mean little kids. My mom calls me all the time just to make sure I'm okay. My father calls me to make sure I'm okay, and I appreciate it. I call too much sometimes, but I'm just kidding. But I appreciate it because it keeps me aware of how I look to other people and things that I'm saying. Okay, let me put this out here for moms and them to go. In the past, my mom's giving the OG people. In the past, we had resilience within ourselves, but now look outside ourselves to be coddled and give an excuse for disappointment. Okay, well, on that note, my mom's 76 years old, so I'm not going to argue that one. So, I guess to wrap up on this, brothers and sisters, seriously, when dealing with sadness, don't lose your joy. I said joy not just an emotion, but your direction, your purpose, your guidance. And remember what Dr. Bilal Phillips said, it's about balance. You don't want to be to a point you forget the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you don't want to get to the point where you blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you perceive as lack of mercy. So, for that, I appreciate you. And, okay, Ree, this is, makes me sad is to not be appreciated. That's real. That's real. I think we've all been in that situation. For me, a lot of times I say, well, was I doing it? Was I doing it for me to be appreciated? Or was I just doing it, And if I feel funny about it, it's like I just want to do it again. I don't want to relive that emotion. I want to relive that emotion. That's the way it is. So let's stay on board. If you have iPhone, I hope by next week we'll be doing a little shout out show on Clubhouse, the Clubhouse app. If you have iPhone, we're going to move it over to that side. If you do have Clubhouse, we could talk, we could chat a little bit. Not long, but I think it'd be funny to start expanding the family, if you will. I'm going to call it the shout out show cookout, virtual cookout. Everybody can get on and meet each other. So Tana, we will talk about that later in the week. Listen, you guys have been great. I appreciate you. And thank you for just letting me talk a little bit. I enjoyed hearing your ideas, and I hope that as we move forward, we all get a little bit more comfortable talking about these things. All right, listen, I'm Preacher Moss. You guys have been great. Thank you so much, SOS family. I hope to see you tomorrow, inshallah. If I don't see you tomorrow, I hope to see you the day after that. And if I don't see you again, I appreciate you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Attar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifattar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.